I'm a potato.
I'm really fucking excited for this because one, it's history stuff, and who doesn't fucking love history? And two, I get to learn new shit. So yeah, I am absolutely excited for this. I don't know if you can tell. So
Yeah.
No, not at all.
let me do the hand flappy.
Stop it. Oh my God.
Big head, little arms.
Oh God. Okay, get on with it now. Do it, lady.
Oh my goodness. So, kind of want to set the scene for everybody today. We're going to go back in time, specifically to 1938. Now, at that time, President Truman decides to make a pretty huge announcement. He decides that he wants to desegregate the U.S. Armed Forces. Granted, that sounds amazing. It's a real step forward. But here's the thing. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Around that same time, there was this guy, R.L. Van. He writes a letter to Dr. Ernest Wilkins and pretty much lays it all out. He says, look, Black citizens have fought and died in every war this country's had. They've paid their dues, but they're still basically locked out of the Army and the Navy. I mean, talk about a mic drop moment.
Right?
You can't get more of a mic drop at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Truman's big decision, the reality on the ground, it was tough for African American soldiers. In 1939, for example, there were over 340,000 soldiers, and only about 3,600 were Black. And they were always led by white officers. Not a great combination.
No.
When the Selective Service Act came along in 1940, there was a group called the Committee for the Participation of Negroes in National Defense. That one's a mouthful. They really started pushing for things to change. Less discrimination, more Black folks, getting to serve, things like that. In 1941, with a little help from Eleanor Roosevelt, the Army finally started letting Black nurses in, thanks in part to, of course, Eleanor, and then the National Association for Colored Graduate Nurses. Big butt here, though. They put a cap on it, 48.
Only 48?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a whole lot.
48 nurses, that was it, that were allowed to be Black.
Now, I do know from for the Navy, the only Black people that they would allow to enlist were cooks. Because
And I didn't pull that information specifically, no.
at that point in time, it was they believed that Black people couldn't swim at all and would just sink like rocks.
Yep.
That's such naive thinking.
Well, and then jumping ahead to 1943, segregation was still a massive issue. And remember, Truman made this decision back in 1938. It still stayed an official policy until 1948. Roosevelt even put a limit on how many Black people could be in the military. And at that point, it was 9%. 9.
9?
9. And the Army never even reached that 9%.
They haven't changed that?
I have not looked at the current numbers, but that's what it was at that time. And then with all of that, if racial discrimination wasn't enough, there was also rampant sexism, which I'm sure that's no shock to anyone. Women in the armed forces during this era were often viewed as logistical problems. They were never viewed as a valuable asset to the military at all. They faced severe restrictions on combat roles, which, we all know that didn't change until the 80s. I think it was the 80s. And then they were frequently depicted in a sexualized manner, which we all have heard the horror stories, as a matter of fact, about those things. Pervasive sexism compounded the challenges faced by women, and then add all of that for Black women who were now receiving the racism and the sexism. So that is the backdrop. The world, I guess, if you'll say, to our incredible subject that Ellie is going to introduce us to.
Indeed,
Yay.
I am. I have spent pretty much all this week pretty much hyper fixated on this subject and doing a really big deep dive. It is a lot to unpack and unravel. In addition to that, also learning about many things throughout history while I was doing this. I'm like, oh, well, that was the first thing for this, and that was the first thing for that. And then doing these small intermittent dives in all of these different facets, which I go into a little bit of a detail in this. So I have a little show. Okay, let me I'm gonna pull this here and then oh wait. Not quite. I need to do this. Share. How do I share my screen with you with this?
You click
Different.
on share and then screen.
It's a little monitor down at the bottom.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties, like I said, we're going to be tying that back into it. Okay, it should be going now. Yes.
There we go.
Okay.
That woman has such an amazing smile. Look at that smile.
Yes, it is. So
She's
today
so
we're going
pretty.
to talk about Major Clarity Adams Early, and I hope I said her name correctly. She was the first African-American woman to be an officer in the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, later known as WAC, or WAC is what the spelling ended up being. She was one of the first of many big changes at her time that she did in the Army. She was born on December 5th, 18, and she was raised in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, this woman, in my research, I found out that she was incredibly smart. In elementary school, she tested at an extremely high level, high school level, but her parents decided to hold her back because she was already several grades above her education compared to her peers, which I'm just going to say this is phenomenal. So right from the get-go, she has a really strong brain. Okay, I feel like she was destined to kind of make changes in this. Sorry. She went on into high school and she graduated valedictorian from Booker T. Washington in 1938. Little fun fact that this is a small dive I dug into. Booker T. Washington High School is a historic school that was established in 1916 and ended in 1974. Wow. It was one of the largest public high schools for Blacks in South Carolina, and one of the few schools that was state accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Secondary Schools, which is, I just think, like, learning about this stuff is great. And I wanted to bring attention to this for another aspect that I'm going to tell you guys about later. But I wanted to make sure that we knew about this.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So after high school, she graduated math. Oh my gosh, I'm stuttering all over myself. After high school, she majored in math, physics, Latin, and minored in history at the Willoughby Forest University in Ohio in 1938. Another little fun fact now about the college that she went to school to. The university was founded in 1856, and it was the first owned and operated Black university in Ohio. Like,
that's awesome.
She went to a school that was one of the first things, you know what I mean? That was like, she was a part of history. And in her oral history, which I'll have all my references and stuff in our blog post after this video, but in her oral history, she makes a comment where she's like, you don't know that you're making history. At the time when she was doing these things, you don't know that you're doing it until after the fact. So it's a little tidbit, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know things are happening and making history until, years and years has passed.
Right.
So from 1838 to 1842, she taught math and science in a junior high school in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, I will say this, for African American women at that time, there wasn't a lot of career opportunities. It
Right.
was either teaching or something in the domestic service department. So the job choices for African American women were very, very limited. So I think that's one of the other reasons why she had considered to enlist, because there's could have been some opportunity there.
Right.
Now, she ended up getting her MA degree in psychology from the Ohio State University after she finished her service. But I kind of wanted to include that in this segment, that we guys kind of have like a little backstory on her educational background, a little bit about some of the things that she was involved in, at least around that time. So, as I stated, like, this woman is absolutely phenomenal. She has the educational background that is amazing. I wanted to share these things so you guys have like a clear picture of what I'm going to be talking about with her history in the military.
Right.
Now, her life was moving normal up until this point, until the time that she enlisted in the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps in 1942. At the time, the Army was still segregated. So before I move on to that, I do want to say this. Many African Americans did want to be a part of their country in their service. They wanted to serve their country despite the segregation and the racism that they encountered. Because it gives them something to do that. Like, there was a hope, a drive into that, even though they faced so many difficulties upon that. One of the many struggles that they faced was the ability to career advance. Now, I I dug a little bit into some documents that was sent over to me. This is an excerpt from a official release document, where it essentially was a draft memorandum trying to argue that there were a lot of African Americans in grade 5. And in the report, there was, as you guys can see in the number, I mean, it's kind of blurry, but there were 475,000 African American soldiers that were in grade 5 compared to their white counterpart of 98,000. And as you can see on the numbers there, like how low as it goes up in rank, that the African American soldiers, there wasn't a lot of higher ups above that enlistment.
Okay, so it starts at 5 and goes up to 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's a lot. It's a little bit of a rig. Again, this document, like where I pulled this document from, is also going to be referenced in my thing there at the blog post. Another example of like issues that the Army had faced and Black African Americans that they faced. Another little micro thing. I know this is kind of a little bit of everywhere, but I promise you it's all part of the grand scheme of things. I'm going to butcher this. Tuscan, I can never pronounce it right.
Tuskegee.
Thank you.
Tuskegee Airmen.
Tuskegee Airmen. I'm so sorry. Don't hate me, I promise. So this is from an excerpt that I had pulled. Airman Winwith. So the Tuskegee Airmen was established by an individual, and I have all the files linked to a more deeper dive. If anyone cares to watch it or look at it, it'll be posted. That goes into a deeper dive. I'm not going to go into it here because there's not the right podcast for it. But just like what Major Adams, what she had did in her time with the battalion that she did, there was this going on. So it was just another program, an example of a program that was set up in a way that would set them up for failure, even though that they absolutely strived and exceeded that. In this quote, it was programmed to fail. Tuskegee Airman Winruth Wintry noted that the school was set up as a tool to back up the findings in 1920s War Department report saying that blacks aren't smart enough or disciplined enough to fly a plane. The Tuskegee Airmen not only broke the color line, they shattered stereotypes about black pilots. I make reference to this on the greater scheme of things. I'm going to continue on. So I found this really cool photo of Eleanor Roosevelt like doing this because she made a visit and she was a very pivotal point in desegregation. So I wanted to make that note there. Back to Adams here. So she was enlisted into it in 1942. And she was stationed at Fort Des Moines. In 1943, she was promoted to major. And in 1944, she was reassigned to the training center control officer in charge of improving efficiency and job training. Now, for most people, they would consider this as like, this is good. I'm happy where I'm at. No, not her. She wanted to serve her country to the best of her ability. And I wanted to stop doing that for a second. Go here. I'm going to share a different thing. 1 second. Technicals, hold, please. Screen.
I should get some hold music for us.
Right, exactly. Thank you. I wanted to have this playing. Is it streaming now? Don't stream. There we go. I wanted to have this playing because it's a 7-minute video. There's no audio to it, but this was actual footage from her time. Okay, so in December 1944, Adams led the only battalion of black WACs ever to serve overseas. They were stationed in Birmingham, England, where Adams was put in charge of the Postal Delivery Service Unit. And in January of 1945, she was appointed the commanding officer of the battalion, the 688 Central Postal Delivery. But in February, I think I skipped a line. I'm trying to let not do it. But she declared herself that she was going to take charge of this. Because she never got any she got the letter saying that, yes, you're going here, but nothing from the War Department. So she pretty much sent a letter saying, I'm going to take a charge of this battalion and I'm going to be the one leading this. So when in February of 1945, the battalion landed in Birmingham, England. Major Adams was given a command by her general for her battalion to endure, after enduring the long journey that they had to march. Okay. Her battalion had to endure such drastic environments. It was they had to avoid German U-boats. So, I mean, imagine it this way. Like you're on seas, you've never laid foot on it. You have no real training on what to expect. And on top of like you're traveling in a vessel that's not really designed for it and going back and forth. The conditions on that boat were also not the greatest for these women. So having to immediately leave the ship and go right into marching. I mean, and they did it successfully. They did it to like the full force of their capabilities, which is phenomenal. That command there was an attempt to set her battalion up for fail. This goes back to like how the overall mindset was in that time of continuing to try to set people, the Black African-American community, African-American soldiers up for failure, and examples in which they superseded that and proved them wrong. This is also a good time to touch up on how sexism affected and undermined the African-American women. Pause that. Go back here. So I have this thing here where I wanted to compare the differences between the African-American WACs versus the white like wax, and the differences were just astounding. They're down to like the duties that they were had to do, the voyage, like it's striking the differences. Yes, both white and African American women had to also deal with the sexism aspect, but not anywhere close to what African American women had to go through. And in addition to that, like with Major Adams, like she was the only Black woman at Black Army Battalion, only one out of all of the people. She had the only battalion versus the white wax who had several.
It's insane.
It is insane. They weren't giving any opportunity, and this makes me mad. You know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't have been that way. And we've made some great strides to not have it be that way now, but the whites, we had a lot more different tasks that we had, the different jobs. So I don't know, like I wanted to just kind of compare the vast differences, and kind of point out and shout it out, like,
Yeah,
this happened, like this was part of history. And I think that we need to remember that. Before going into this deep dive, I had no idea who this woman was or even this story. I never heard of the Netflix, like nothing. I'm going into this completely blinded. And there's a lot in her story that I don't really necessarily pinpoint, because I felt like there's a lot of things that are out there that if anyone wants to dig in deep, there's that Netflix thing that's out there. There's a plethora of articles that you can dig in and find information detailing the things that she's had to endure. But I wanted to kind of give like an overall view of her life, of the things that she had accomplished, because when she was in this, I'm going to start sharing the screen. When she was in this battalion, she had 6 months to handle everything, of all of the articles and everything, like the amounts pressure to do this, while also dealing with the segregation issues, the racism issues, the limits and things that she had to endure, all while trying to just do her fucking job.
right.
You know what I mean? And essentially always continuing to fight that, like, pushback, like, just let me do my job, let me do it to the best of my ability. But every roadblock was trying to prevent her from doing that. And she showed up. Her and her whole battalion showed the fuck up. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they were like totally bet.
And when they finally started making real headway on delivering the mail for soldiers, she became like, everyone, like, she walked into a room and be like, hey, are you Major Adams? Yeah. And they fucking start clapping, because they got letters from their family that they hadn't heard from in a while, and they needed that overall morale, that confidence change to, like, get the moral. And then back home, people getting letters from their loved ones overseas, and getting that, like, finally there is this, you know what I mean? There's some knowing that their loved one is safe, or at least having that closure that, hey, yes, they've passed, they've moved on, they served their country. So she paved a really crucial role, and defied all odds. So that's kind of in a nutshell where I'm at with this, with her. And I'm glad I got to kind of do this dive on it. I kind of got really focused, and I was excited and nervous about it all.
I absolutely love how you were just like, I'm going to do this week. And then you just dove right into it and just like, woo. And it was.
Oh, I thought it was amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think with all of this being said, it's all an attempt to break down stereotypes and stigmatism because
Yep.
it might not be as what it was, but it is still a prominent thing because that's what our parents grew up in. That's how, I mean, it really wasn't that long ago.
No.
In the grand scheme of things, it really was not that long ago. And I feel that right now is a great time for Jess to read the selected poem of the day.
You want me to read the poem?
I would love for you to read the poem.
Okay. The poem is called Will V-Day Be Me Day Too by Langston Hughes. Over there, World War II. Dear fellow Americans, I write this letter hoping times will be better when this war is through. I'm a tan-skinned Yank driving a tank. I ask, will V-Day be me day too? I wear a U.S. uniform. I've done the enemy much harm. I've driven back the Germans and the Japs from Burma to the Rhine on every battle line. I've dropped defeat into the fascist laps. I am a Negro American out to defend my land. Army, Navy, Air Corps, I am there. I take munitions through. I fight, or stevedore too. I face death the same as you do, everywhere. I've seen my buddy lying where he fell. I've watched him dying. I promised him that I would try to make our land a land where his son could be a man, and there'd be no Jim Crow birds left in our sky. So, this is what I want to know. When we see victories glow, will you still let old Jim Crow hold me back? When all those foreign folks who've waited, Italians, Chinese, Danes, are liberated, will I still be ill fated because I'm black? Here in my own, my native land, will the Jim Crow laws still stand? Will Dixie lynch me still when I return? Or will you comrades in arms from the factories and the farms have learned what this war was fought for us to learn? When I take off my uniform, will I be safe from harm? Or will you do me as the Germans did the Jews? When I've helped this world to save, shall I still be color's slave? Or will victory change your antiquated views? You can't say I didn't fight to smash the fascist might. You can't say I wasn't with you in each battle as a soldier and a friend. When this war comes to an end, will you herd me in a Jim Crow car like cattle? Or will you stand up like a man at home and take your stand for democracy? That's all I ask of you when we lay the guns away to celebrate our victory day. Will V Day be me day too? That's what I want to know. Sincerely, G.I. Joe.
That, when, damn it, Chris, when you shared that article with that poem with me, I was sitting there reading it and I'm like, wow. Because I was reading it and I started to get like emotional. I'm getting emotional now because I'm like, that is such a powerful thing. Like,
Well, and as soon as I saw it, you heard my reaction. I'm like,
yes, yes. It, like, holy fuck. You know, it just all goes down to like what I was saying, that like even despite facing racial discrimination, the segregation, the lifestyle that came with it, they still wanted to fucking fight. You know what I mean? They wanted to fight alongside us. They wanted to fight along people who that were being racist against them for the country. You know what I mean? Like,
for the country that was treating them like shit.
And that whole poem is just like, he's mentioned something about like, will I come back to being lynched? I'm like, I wanted to fucking cry when I read that. I'm all like, this was a real thing, a fear that they had to potentially endure. Like, okay, am I gonna come back home and then, like, you know, I don't know. It's just it's emotional.
It is emotional, and I am just sitting here looking at the correlations as to what's happening right now with immigrants.
Yeah.
We have a lot of immigrants in the military. They joined to earn their citizenship, and we're treating them like shit. And they're going through the same exact thing now.
Yep.
And it's fucking heartbreaking and enraging. And
Yeah.
That's a good place to end it for tonight, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. I love you guys. We'll see you next week.